Welcome to Financial Freedom with the Flipping Flanagans, where we help real estate agents and already successful business professionals create legacy wealth through real estate. We go by the Flipping Flanagans, and we don't actually flip houses very often. When you drop the F-bomb a little too often, add that to a real estate background, you get the Flipping Flanagans. We actually buy property to hold and see long-term gains protected from inflation while seeing amazing benefits from appreciation and depreciation. See you on the other side.
Well, hello, we're back. We're excited to share with you some valuable information as you pursue your real estate investing goals. My wonderful wife Jamie's here. Are you here?
No, I'm not here. Just
Oh.
kidding.
Well, I wanted her to introduce the title for today's show because it's so wonderfully written that I probably would stumble over it. So what's the topic of this one?
Oh my gosh, you're cracking me up.
Good. That's what I'm here for. You're entertaining.
All right, so today's episode, we are talking about positioning your property for. See, I stumbled over it too.
See?
I don't even think we should edit this out. I think we should just try saying this
Oh,
seven
no.
times fast.
I was walking up the stairs getting ready saying, I don't like scripts.
Positioning for profit prior to purchasing. So today we're going to be talking about tips to purchasing and what to do before you close on the home that can set you up for success. So let's just jump right in. A couple of things that we talk about with our clients are different options for purchasing when you're trying to get a deal. So in this crazy market that we're in right now, and this at the time of this recording is January of 2022, it is a little bit tougher to get a deal. We have to make more offers. We have to get creative. We're typically writing offers with no inspection or an inspection for informational purposes only. And this is where I can give some insight, because what we'll even go as far as is where we offer inspection by licensed contractors. So in theory, we're getting your HVAC, your roofer, your electrician, your plumber out to the property in lieu of an inspection. And these kind of cover the basis points of the home. And whatever is going to be the most important to you is definitely who you're going to want to have out there. So go ahead.
Which, like, I just would want to preface this with the we're again trying to speak to multiple audiences. So in this case, not everybody has a real estate license when you're out there and you're looking for the right property to acquire. And so if you are working with a real estate agent, I would be doing your due diligence to make sure that they can effectively represent you. They can advise you on what their opinion is based on the characteristics of the specific property, because you could still get into negotiating something to the buyer's benefit on the right transaction.
Absolutely.
Based on whether the condition of the property, how it's being marketed. You'll hear from us time and time again that we've purchased a lot of homes from like estate sales or as the result of a passing of the homeowner. So there's different scenarios. And in that case, just be cautious of the advice and also listen to your gut. And like, if you're not feeling like you're getting the best representation, because a real estate agent at the end of the day only gets paid when they sell a house, just like a lender only gets paid if they close a loan. We don't want somebody who's just trying to get you to get into contract, that they're still trying to keep your best interest in mind. I know that goes without saying, but it's relevant to share.
Absolutely. And your agent's experience is definitely going to play out here. And there's a lot of different strategies that I can go into just with hiring the right agent. And I think that's a whole nother podcast topic in itself, because some people want the brand new agent who will hustle and find the deals, and others want the experienced agent. I'm the agent who has no problem crawling into an attic and seeing if there's mold up there when I'm showing properties. So luckily, I don't do that very much anymore, as we have lots of help on our team now. But I train my team the same way, is to evaluate the property as much as possible in that initial showing without violating the seller's property, if that makes sense. So something we do is I tend to run like faucets, adjust the thermostat, and make sure I adjust it back to where it was before I came into the home. And this just allows me to see if the AC kicks on, if the furnace kicks on, if there's any issues there that we can just easily see without paying an inspector or contractor to come in afterwards. checking for foundation cracks and bowing in the foundation. Again, popping up in the attic to look for obvious mold or sunlight coming through or moisture spots. Uh,
Wasn't there like a thing where you would close the doors and
yes,
see if the doors are tight? And of course, it could be how it's mounted, but also like the casing of the door could be changing because of
the foundation shifting.
structure of the house. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So I actually will shut the doors, and if you can see an obvious gap in anywhere in the doors. Now, sometimes the door jamb might just need to be adjusted, but oftentimes it'll give you an immediate. Sorry, I'm blanking on
clue
words.
as to
Clue.
whether or not to
Yeah.
like look for more or dive a little bit deeper. So yeah, you're ultimately trying to, with the profitability piece, I mean, look for some things that might eat into your profit margin.
Another thing when you're checking the foundation, I work a lot with the waterproofing different waterproofing companies in Omaha. As we have basements in Omaha, and with a basement you can get water. So working with those and just hearing the inspections over and over again, they always say like a crack has on if it's on one side of the property, it's on the other. It has a start and end, and so it goes in a corner. And can explain that better on a video, I suppose. But it's definitely like if you find a crack, there's a point of that pressure on the other side on another wall of the foundation, if that makes sense. So just things that you can start to look for, and even ask if you have a contractor friend who's familiar with some of these things that you guys can walk through together, and you can learn from that person to what to look for in the future as well. Go
Which,
ahead.
keeping in mind, like the home inspection profession is more of a set of guidelines. There isn't really any defined requirements, at least in many states. So there are organizations that certify, but that almost to a certain extent is optional, and it's a something that, of course, professionals will pursue. But be careful if you do end up hiring an inspector. Like, check the resume, or do your due diligence just like you would with any other profession as well. Because I mean, if we wanted to, we could start a home inspection business and just be good at marketing and not necessarily be great at it, and just have our errors and omissions insurance. Now, if you're doing a bad job, you're likely not to stay in business for a very long time. But it is important to be curious enough to edify yourself as to common things to look for. And if you do hire a home inspector, shadow them if you can, or if they allow for it, to educate yourself on the areas that they look for and what areas are the most concerning, so that when you're again evaluating that property as an investment, you need to be building the budget for what you're going to be putting into said property if you do intend to improve it.
And I will say there's some really reputable inspectors that I've worked with or that I've seen recently with the market, because houses are being sold as is, where they will actually go to the showing with you, and they'll charge a minimal fee for a very quick look through the property. Nothing like, again, nothing that would violate
Intrusive.
this, nothing intrusive. However, you can get at least a look on it before you're in a bidding war trying to close on the property. Uh, and again, there's deals to be found everywhere, and we talk about this extensively. And if you're not in our group, Building Legacy Wealth on Facebook, join that group. But we do talk about how to find deals in any market. We have been consistently building our portfolio through this entire crazy seller's market, and we don't overpay for properties. We are still finding great deals and finding motivated sellers. So there's ways to do it. Okay, so now, as we navigate this whole topic, again, we're trying to position you for profit prior to the purchase. So, something else that I really like to get, if it's possible, is for the seller to allow you to show the property prior to closing. Now, again, depending on your agent, depending on your market, and what the rules are, definitely something to consult with your agent on. However, when we write offers personally, I write in there that I'm able to show, especially if it's vacant, not if it's occupied. I don't even really go there. But if it's a vacant property, I write in that I with sufficient notice, can show the property to potential tenants. That way I can, if it needs work, that might not be the best property to do this on. But if it's a pretty move-in ready property and it just needs carpet and paint, showing that tenant and having them ready to move in the day of closing is a huge win. And then you don't have any lack in, or you don't have an excessive vacancy. Basically, you can close on the property, you get their security deposit right after, get their first month's rent, fix the, let's say carpet and paint takes a week, they can move in right away, and you didn't skip a beat.
I think we've even had that opportunity to show some stuff and probably gotten better tenants because we've said, hey, we're going to paint it. And if they pick a reasonable, neutral type color, we can accommodate that. And who knows, if they love it more, they might stay there longer. And again, it's always a win if you can get a higher quality tenant that you have a higher probability of getting that payment from every month.
Yes, we've had really good tenants and long-term tenants, and that's another topic we'll go over is just setting tenant expectations and how to actually maintain this business and keep everyone happy so that it's a mutually beneficial relationship between the tenant and the landlord. Uh,
Yeah, we sorry we were absent for a little while. We had a whole lot going on. Everybody's got the holidays. It wasn't for lack of content. It's just a lack of time. So, thanks for hanging in there with us and tuning back in. And promise to have the content flowing.
um, okay, so
I love throwing Jamie off.
oh my gosh.
It's the most fun part. You gotta mix it up every now and then. But no, so she's talking about the negotiations prior to actually completing the purchase itself. So whether or not you're fortunate enough to write in a due diligence period, which gets a little harder depending on the type of property and the type of seller that you're dealing with. But I guess does that give you some more ammo to kind of pick up where you left off?
Yeah, so the next thing kind of going into that is how to balance between things that come up, like basically as okay, so we talked about carpet and paint a little bit. And so let's say you go to pull that carpet up and it's like an shiitake mushrooms moment. And you realize that like the subfloor is damaged or there's water, moisture that needs to be repaired. And that's something that we have, because of how many properties we've purchased and flipped and everything else, we've learned the balance between making a property overly beautiful and making sure that we save money for the behind the scenes stuff. And one of probably the most common things that comes up in the older homes that we've purchased is the sewer line needing repaired, or there's issues with backing up. We buy a lot of homes in like the Benson area, in Omaha, and older Bellevue, older Millers, yeah, anywhere that there's older homes, you have to worry about that. So now we just budget for that. And if we are purchasing a house and that's a certain year old or older, we're going to make sure that we either have the option to have a sewer scope so we're prepared for it, or we have the money set aside just to do it. Do you have anything to add on that, Brad, as far as like balancing between things that come up and making the property really pretty? I really, really like to bougie everything up if I can, but we have to scale back and be reasonable. And we have a
You like
spreadsheet.
Airbnbs, bougie on a budget.
Oh, bougie on a budget. Uh,
Well, no, when you're building that budget, there's the I always have a line item for like or miscellaneous, and it's generally going to be almost a percentage of the entire budget in and of itself. Just like when you're measuring the floors or the square footage for flooring, you are going to mark it up 10 or 20% just because if you're getting LVT or whatever you're putting in there, you're going to have scrap. And so trying to build in a little extra margin should be an absolute requirement, but that's not a budget to accommodate upgrading your materials per se. So I think we still try to stick to what we know, and of course something that's going to be timeless and reusable or that you're familiar with, because we've had contractors, for example, we've hired, and they are short-sighted, so they're thinking, oh yeah, go buy this, which was cheaper, but the installation of that cheaper material far surpassed spending a little bit more on an easier to install product. at a slightly higher price. So one area to be conscious of is your labor costs are generally higher than your material costs, or at least equivalent. Um, and what you what appeals to you when you walk through the store isn't necessarily going to appeal to a tenant or be the durable item that you want in a property that's going to be turned over time and time again. So getting I've had somebody who purchased some window coverings, and for him it was the right deal, and they got a great tenant and got a premium on the rent for it. So it ended up working out. But then, you might just say, oh no, we can afford to start banging walls down and reorganizing the layout, and then you get further into it and you find an issue that you weren't planning, and you used up your budget on additional improvements. Now that you're much further over budget, and a $1,200 item is another month of rent that just goes to an expense before you start to recoup your investment. So
Right. That's exactly right. And that's how we really look at everything. So, if I'm looking for appliances, if we spend an extra $500 in appliances, is that going to net us additional money in rent to cover it? Or is it just going to look nicer? Or are we just going to feel more comfortable? And this is something we evaluate in new construction and helping our sellers remodel, because in our tenants, they didn't go in the store and see the options. So you have to remove all of the stuff that you saw kind of from your mind, because stick with your budget. You know that you made the budget based on something, so it's likely something you've worked with before, or that you've seen on in other properties. So stick with that. Now, I price check a lot of different places, because the same item might be on sale somewhere and then, not another place. So I cross-check multiple websites. I have a whole spreadsheet of of different websites that I look for, as far as flooring, appliances, furniture for our Airbnbs. I mean, I'm always checking that to stick within what we want to make profit on the property. Uh, Let me just go back to my notes here.
which it brings to another point where we've bought plenty of properties that are rent ready or just about rent ready with minor improvements. And so you do that and let it perform for a little while and see what happens. Don't have to throw everything into it all at once. Let's see, what kind of tenant pool does this property in this location attract? Is this a market that I would want to invest in? Is this a promising neighborhood property that is attracting the long-term tenant? Or something that you might end up finding out is that it just is a trouble property, and therefore you might want to relieve yourself of it sooner than you planned. Well, it makes it really hard to do that when you're overly invested in the property, and so then you might hold on to it for longer, which is may not prove to actually get you your goal. It might get you to a break even, and then you finally feel like you can sell it and move on. So it's always better to, I guess, take the cautious approach. Think of it like a marriage. You can kind of date that property for a little while before you really invest everything you have into it.
So this, let me go back to a little bit on that, picking out finishes. And what I like to do is think about, okay, I'm going to be marketing this property online. So picking one area, one thing, like making one that profile picture stand out, right? So if the property has a really awesome kitchen, go ahead and upgrade that backsplash, upgrade the light fixture in there so that it pops. And that way your picture online, you can use that one as the profile picture, and you're going to get a ton of leads on it because it looks so nice. You don't want the rest of the property to not look nice. You still want to update it to be consistent throughout the property. I just like to pick an area, because if your tenant loves to cook and they see this awesome kitchen, you're going to attract somebody who's interested in that kitchen. For example, if you upgrade the primary bathroom and or let's say it doesn't, if a property doesn't even have a primary bathroom and a primary bedroom, and you find one that does and it's rare in that neighborhood, you might want to, like, that's just a benefit in itself. So doing minimal upgrades but making it look nice and clean is plenty. So it's really evaluating. It's like running comps on a house when you get ready to sell your own home. You want to, I basically log in and I look at what else is available, what has rented out recently, what's the neighborhood like, and update it accordingly. And that's really going to help you with your tenant pool. It's going to help you fill the house quicker. It's going to help you have to show the house less. So it's a time savings when that property is nice. And honestly, just cleaning and fresh paint does miracles for properties. And a lot of times that's literally how we find our properties is it's not clean and it's not freshly painted. So people aren't bidding on it or writing an offer on it, even in a really good market. So we write a little bit low and the seller takes it because they think there's something royally wrong with their property when really they just needed it to be deep cleaned. So, you spend $300 to get it deep cleaned and some money on paint, and for $1,500 to $2,000 sometimes it's ready to rent. Do you have any insight on that?
Somebody was living there prior. I mean,
Right.
it was good enough for somebody to live in. Obviously, make sure you address all your health and safety concerns and provide suitable housing. And then that's what a move-in checklist is for. It's to audit the property in the current condition. And then that way, when they move out, if it's normal wear and tear based upon those items, great. And I've not really met many tenants that wouldn't accommodate if you said you were going to actually improve the property. You just needed to rebuild your capital a little bit through just renting it out in its current condition. Not a problem at all. It's regular real estate, especially if we're talking, in this case, seems to be geared more towards single family housing. It's a great strategy to implement. And then, secondarily, you can do two different things. One, you can network with local small real estate investors, or even at whatever scale. But generally, if you're networking with somebody who's at the same place or maybe a little more than you are, build that network, and then you can go directly to them and say, hey, can I see a few of your properties, or can you come take a look at my property, and then get their opinion as to maybe what they would or wouldn't do, or what they like about yours and what they would change about theirs. You can always secret shop, but I'd feel bad about that sometimes if you're taking up somebody's time and not really genuinely interested in renting. But you do have to familiarize yourself with the competition. And so if you're going into an area where every other house is similar market rent but completely run down, then there again is no advantage to turning your place into the Taj Mahal. You just need to meet or exceed your competition's current condition, or what's stable, typical, and normal for that neighborhood, and then you're good to go from there. Because I promise you, maintenance things will come up. If it's not a functional utility item, it's going to be a tree or a bush or an alleyway. There will be things that need to be addressed. It's just how costly and how labor intensive is that going to be?
Yeah, so when you're evaluating the different things too, there's tax strategies behind it. So as you're creating that budget and shopping for properties, it's just really good again to go back to that goal planning with your CPA, and or at least having the knowledge on what to replace versus what to try and repair, because there are tax strategies that come along with it and how fast you can depreciate something based on if you repaired or replaced it. So that's another, well, I guess if you can depreciate it, I should say, or if you can write it off in full that year. So those are just a couple of things that I wanted to go through today on how to position yourself for profit. And on our next episode, I want to give a sneak peek.
Before you
Yeah.
include that one in, the only other item I wanted to add was a couple of things that have really just worked out as far as, again, positioning for profitability. And then I think we used to have the word pretty in here somewhere, but that attraction to your property, or kind of getting it to set it apart. I believe you've asked for the permission to use photos from the listing
Yep.
in your marketing for a tenant. And subsequent to that, if it's a property that we've made significant improvements to or changed its appearance, we have gone so far as to stage those. Go look at any big neighborhood community rental complex. We're talking large scale commercial stuff. they have a unit typically that has been staged that they can walk the prospective tenant into, and that it just stays permanently staged, and it's not necessarily the exact unit you'd be renting. So there again, that operation is set up. They're paying those rental.
Yeah, and the thing is, you
Uh,
can buy really inexpensive furniture to stage it because it's not actually being sat on. You actually want to be able to move it.
yeah,
So cheap furniture from Home Goods and Wayfair. I love ordering from Wayfair and Amazon because it gets delivered right to the door, and then I just show up to place it wherever it needs to go. So, and it does, like I've noticed with our apartments, even our like low cost, very efficient apartments, if they sit for a month, I stage them and they're usually rented within a week. So, definitely staging is huge. And yeah, it's part of the marketing and showing up online. And yeah, right into the offer when we place the offer, uh, buyer to be able to use listing photos for marketing purposes or what whoever has grants permission. So all right, anything else?
that's all I got.
All right.
Appreciate you guys tonight.
So I want to plug the next episode really quick because with the way that the market's been, I have actually personally sold and have a ton of friends and clients selling. And what they're doing is they're selling their homes and then they are personally renting. So they're paying a premium for rent. And we kind of want to talk through some strategy there. So tune in next time. That's what we will be touching on. And thank you so much for listening today. We really appreciate it. Please, please, please give us a review on this podcast. It helps us immensely and refer it to any of your friends.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great one.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We hope you'll hit that subscribe button to stay in touch. Also, join our Facebook group at Building Legacy Wealth Through Real Estate to find out more about what we do and what we offer. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.